Ottawa. They've been also Rans now for 3 seasons, and the expectation is next season things will get better. And if you're a Sens fan, things are going to get better next year. By all accounts, they should. I don't know how much. The question of, well, when do they get back into the playoffs? Probably not this coming season. There's just too many young players and there's too many question marks with this overall roster, but they have to get better. This season that we just put on hold, 25, 34, and 12, 62 points. The season before that, 29, 47, and 6, 64 points. So they were better this year than last year. And the season before that, 28, 43, and 11 for 67 points. So you could argue that this season was the best they've had in their last three, because the 2017-2018 season, going into that year, they weren't supposed to be bad. They were a team that was coming off of that 2017 run where they almost reached the Stanley Cup Finals, and then they just don't. So for the Ottawa Senators, really kind of a big year coming up, and a big year for Pierre Dorion. And this is one where Eugene Melnick's talk about creating a Stanley Cup champion, and okay, we're going to build towards the greatest success that Ottawa's ever had, and we're looking at, we're going to be a dynasty. Like, all of whatever he's saying, whatever his plan is, it either comes to fruition on some level this year, or I don't know what you do. But they have to start getting better this season. All the excuses are going to be gone. Now, when you look at their UFA list, it's a list of players that aren't worthy of huge raises, so you're not looking at a situation where they have to worry about who they're going to keep or who they're going to lose, but there is one name on the board that definitely jumps out. So Bodker's not it. Bodker being a healthy scratch as often as he was and just being invisible for portions of his time in Ottawa since arriving from San Jose. Bodker, I think, is probably headed to Europe next season. Matthew Pekka, if he wants to stick around, he's not going to cost him a lot of money. He'll probably get a better opportunity at some ice time in Ottawa than he might somewhere else. So, might keep him around. Sabourin, if Sabourin wants to stay on the fourth line, he may have an opportunity to do that for the Ottawa Senators. Hainsey, they seem to be stuck on the idea of keeping him around, and he may transition into being an assistant coach. We'll see what he does, if he wants to play another year or two, or if he wants to retire or whatever, and I'm sure Ottawa will figure something out with him. Borowiecki's the big name on the board. I know, people are going to say, what about Craig Anderson? Anderson's probably retiring. Be very surprised if Anderson doesn't retire this summer, which means we may have already seen Anderson play his final NHL game, which is part of what bothers me during this pause. People go, the season's just done. Do you know how many guys we've probably seen play their final game? Like, it's easy right now to say, oh, who cares? But I remember the season we lost in 04-05, and man, there were so many players that it was like, well, I guess his career's finished. What a crappy way to end it. And this feels worse. That was a lockout. That was something that the owners and players did to each other. This is just life taking it away from them. So Borowiecki, if he's played his last game for the Ottawa Senators, that would be a surprise. I think the plan will be to do whatever they can to keep him. They've seen enough veteran players leave via free agency and via trades. I think they're going to want to start showing some signs that they're going to hold on to guys and they're going to keep this team together now, and they're going to build from within. And so keeping him on the blue line, especially considering the year he just had, pretty darn good season. And I think if he keeps playing the way he did this year, which was, I'm trying not to get hurt and I'm trying to play a little better. Yeah, do that. So if he can continue to play the way he did this season, he's a good top four defenseman for the Ottawa Senators. So with that being said, when you look at the restricted free agents, we might see some of these guys get a bit of a raise. Chris Tierney definitely deserves that. Connor Brown, good year for him as well. Anthony Duclair, what is Duclair worth? That's the huge question right now if you're Ottawa. Is Duclair that goal scorer that went to the All-Star break or All-Star game before the break, or is he the guy who struggled to score goals after the break? Which, or is it somewhere in between? And if it's somewhere in between, how much is he worth? And that's a question that Ottawa's going to have to answer this summer. Jace Harreluk played well after going to Ottawa. He did. So if Harreluk wants to stick around and if they want to figure out a number, I don't think it's going to be expensive, and I think he's going to be a steal for them next year. Rudolph's Balcers, not going to get a huge raise, clearly. Nick Paul, Andreas Englund, these guys aren't going to get big raises, so it's not going to eat into the fact they only have $41.9 million spent for next year, according to Cap Friendly. They've been carrying around a lot of dead money just to get to the salary floor. And next year, I don't know that they necessarily have to do that. They might. Pierre Dorian might go out and say, you know what? You got a contract you don't like, give me a call, and if you throw in a first with it, I'll take on your bad contract. If you throw in a second, and I'm talking about for next year, obviously, then I might take that on. So in an era where we don't know what the cap's going to be next year, Ottawa's not in any worries. Not in any shape to be even worried about it. They are probably one of the very few teams in the league that goes, yeah, whatever the cap does, it does. We don't really care. And it may leave them in the catbird seat when it comes to next season, because there may be a lot of teams that are cap strapped, considering how much money the NHL loses if they decide to cancel the season. It is in excess of $300 million. Depending on which economist you look at, like, and I'm talking NHL level economist, could be as much as $500 million that the NHL forgoes. There's a reason they're trying to delay it as long as possible and figure out a way to make it work. It is a lot of money, and it's going to do something to the cap that you don't want to be doing right before going into a new collective bargaining agreement, before going into a new contract with an American network in the States to broadcast hockey. Like, if there is not a worse time for this to have happened. If it had happened in October and we had lost a season and got wiped out, it actually would have been better for the NHL than what we're dealing with right now. I honestly think that. Where it just would have been just a whole year scrub. But as it is, it's a partial year and likely playoffs. And if that takes place, it is a huge amount of money. So that's the reason for the delay for these people. Go, why won't they just cancel? It's just there's so much money on the line. And it again goes into the collective bargaining agreement, goes into the cap moving forward. They want to know their cap 2 years out, and it's working for players, and they don't want a huge amount going into escrow. Escrow money, how big is that next year? So there's a lot of factors into why they haven't just straight out canceled. Worst contract to best contract. Best contract, honestly, Hogberg at $700K for another year. He's going to be one of the two goaltenders I would think I would think it'd be him and Nilsson next year, but they could go with Hogberg and somebody else. I think Anderson's probably done. Worst contract, apologies to Bobby Ryan, but it still stands out. And that's with Nikita Zaitsev's contract. That's with Colin White's contract and the fact he did not have a very good year this year. I would still say Ryan at $7.25 million for 2 more years is still the worst contract on the team. I really hope he has a good year in 2020, 2021 and proves us all wrong. And, is this big comeback story. So that's what I'm hoping for, but it still kind of stands out on a team that doesn't spend money as one place where money is spent that is probably a little bit higher than it should be. Now, rookie watch. This is where things get kind of strange, and I'm doing things different than I have with other teams. Josh Norris, he's going to have every opportunity to make this team out of camp. Philip Gustafsson may be the answer in net with Hogberg. You may go with Hogberg and Gustafsson. Be a young and experienced duo, but Gustafsson is seen as their next starter. Not going to say goalie of the future. And then they have the 2 2020 first-round picks. They have San Jose's and their own, which could very well mean 2 top 5 picks. And in this draft, that's likely 2 guys ready to jump into the lineup. Now, there's other players who don't qualify as rookies, but they haven't played enough games that I think we view them as regular NHLers just yet. And if I don't mention them in this video, people are going to go, well, wait, why isn't this guy on the board? He should be in the rookies because they don't qualify. And that's Logan Brown, who's played too many games already. Alex Formenton. So to be qualified as a rookie, you have to play less than, I think it's 26 games in any given season in 1 year, or less than 6 games in 2 previous seasons. So if a guy's played 7 games 1 year, 7 games the next, he doesn't qualify as a rookie the next year. I'm pretty sure that's the numbers. Drake Batherson as well, not qualifying as a rookie. Eric Brandstrom on the blue line, Christian Jarosz on the blue line, and Maxime Lajoie on the blue line. That's 6 young players who I think are going to get spots on the roster. This is why when you look at Sabourin, he's probably going to find himself off the roster. But if Scott Sabourin does hit the UFA market, somebody will pick him up. Somebody who needs some toughness in their lineup will pick him up. And some inspirational kind of leadership stuff too, because Sabourin kind of came out of nowhere. There was the famous looking at the back of his jersey by Austin Matthews in the preseason, right? And he kind of proved that he can play in the NHL. Does he play on the edge? Absolutely. Can he play in the NHL? Yes. So for Ottawa, this is a lot of young players. And how they work this and how they make all of this come together and still improve on their points totals and get closer to the playoffs is going to be a challenge. Because you look at this team and you can say, okay, they keep Borowiecki on a decent long-term extension. He can be a leader. He can be a captain, potentially. But this is a team that could use those veterans. You look at teams like Chicago, LA, Pittsburgh, when they come out of their rebuild and they start getting better, they pick up veteran players that really complement the young kids. They pick up guys who can lead the team until those kids are ready to be the leaders. And that's the question. So, whether it's Tkachuk, who's going to be going into year 3 this year, whatever happens with Ottawa going from here going forward, it's going to be dependent on how they complement these kids. Who comes in and who is that leader, like a Patrick Marleau was to Toronto, something like that. And Marleau likely will be available this summer. You could do worse if Marleau's willing to play in Ottawa. You could do worse for a fourth line center that can provide that leadership in the locker room. Because the problem is, if you're Ottawa, if they don't put up at least, I would say 80 points next year, I'll say 80. They don't at least show that improvement to 80 points, fans are going to start getting really frustrated, because if it's 4 years in a row of being an also-ran, and again, the distrust between the fan base and Eugene Melnyk is already there, that's not going to help. So they do need to show some progress this year, and I think for Pierre Dorion, they need to show some progress. Melnyk's going to start getting kind of impatient. If he feels like this isn't going along quickly enough, and okay, now we've got to ramp up because we've got to get fans back into these seats, I'm losing money here, we're going to see some discussions regarding Dorion's future. But for right now, he's safe, and those two 2020 first-round picks, it could be Lafreniere, and it could be Stützle, and if they manage to get both, well, I'm sorry, San Jose, but that really makes Ottawa a lot better, a lot quicker. So there you go. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below, as always. Ottawa's a tricky team to try to figure out right now because there are so many players who are either RFA or UFA, and almost all of them have arbitration rates. So it's going to be really interesting to see how things work once the offseason's officially the offseason. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.